Do you wait for everything to be perfect and lined up straight before you make a choice? How hard are you trying to get everything in your life right? What if jumping in and getting messy is one of the ways to find out what works for you? Discover how being willing to mess up can create the phenomenal life you truly desire. Get ready to quit judging and start embracing all of your messy adventures. Now, here's your host, self-declared messy living expert, Petrina Fava.
Hey, welcome to Messy Adventures in Living. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is in your part of the world. Thank you for being here. Have you ever been here before to Messy Adventures in Living? Would you like to know a little bit about what this is all about? So Messy Adventures in Living is a radio show, an hour where you get to play with me and I get to invite you into getting messy with your life and stop waiting for everything to be perfect. What could you create if you started to function from choice instead of waiting for everything to be lined up straight before you chose anything? Is that actually living? So I'm Petrina Fava, and here's a few ways that I play in the world. I'm a mom of 3 kids. They are 13 and 10 and almost 7 now. I'm also a pediatric nurse. I work here in Toronto. I've been doing that for coming up 20 years. And what else do I do? I also create my own bath and body products. And the name of those is called Naturally Happy Body. If you're interested in anything like that, you can look at naturallyhappybody.com. I'm an access consciousness, bars, and body process facilitator, and a million other things that you can find if you go to petrinafava.com. So I am really excited about today's show, so we're going to get to the chase. I have an awesome guest on today. Her name is Jeneen Yungwirth, and today we're talking about the lies of death. So, what do you believe about death that is actually a lie? What if sad and loss and missing and gone are all lies, no matter how real they feel to you? What if it's possible to have an even greater relationship or connection with someone after they die? And can that show up for you if you're holding on to the lie that they're gone? So thanks for joining me and my amazing guest, psychic medium Jeneen Yungwirth, today as we bust the lies that we have been believing about death. What if dropping them could open the floodgates to easily staying connected to our loved ones, whether they have a body or not? So Jeneen is an author, a speaker, and she used to have a radio show right here with us on the Inspired Choices Network, and you can still find all of her shows in our archives. The show is called Just Show Up. Yes, Just Show Up. She is an intuitive and does work as a psychic medium. At the age of 13, Jeneen had an experience where she felt as though she was being watched. Not sure what was going on and thinking it was all in her head, she brushed it off each time she was in a particular location. Probably not something any of you listening have ever done. Not long after she overheard someone talking about all the strange things that were happening there, Jeneen had the validation that it wasn't all in her head. Being a psychic medium is an amazing ability that Jeneen has, and she feels it is even more important for people to start acknowledging what they too are capable of. She has the most fun teaching people how to acknowledge themselves as the creators of their lives and teaching them tools for how to change the areas in their lives that are not working for them. I love it. Hello, Jeneen. Welcome to Messy Adventures in Living.
Hello, Petrina. Thank you so much for having me. What a fun topic.
I know, right? Yes. Awesome. I love it. Actually, it is fun. So today's topic is brought to us. So funny. I'm going to just say it the way it just popped in my head. So today's show is brought to us by my dead dog, MJ. I love it. Away. Right, seriously, it really is. So my dog, MJ, died last year, a year ago, yesterday. And just as we were approaching the 1 year, mark, because we make these things significant in this reality, I started to just, think a lot about what is this thing of missing her, because I often be like, oh, I really miss her. Like I'd love to rub her fur again and have her lick me again, and and so I started to, and I know this, but I really started looking at, wow, we really do have a lot of why am I buying into the lies about death? I can connect with her. I can talk to her anytime, and last year in May, I did an amazing show, a radio show called One More Gift Before I Go with Susie Godsey. If anyone wants to take a peek at that show, it's May 16th, 2016. I wanted to talk about it because actually the 2 weeks before she died, she kind of sort of died suddenly, but not really. She just got sick, and like in 2 weeks she was gone. And the gifts that I was given, like the gifts of awareness that she gave me, I learned so much from all of that process. It was the first time that I really had lost a pet that way. Were just amazing. And what I was most struck by was how much she had absolutely no point of view about death, about whether she died or not, about whether she stayed if I wanted her to, about whether or not we took her to the vet and helped her go, or if she just was going to hang out on the couch and, die by herself. Like, she didn't have a point of view about suffering. I was so struck by the no point of view of death. And so that's why I wanted to explore this topic again today. And Jeneen was just like popped in my head right away because I like Jeneen. I like you, Jeneen. So I'm glad you're here.
I love you too, Petrina. I think it's amazing how animals are so aware, and what you're saying with having no point of view.
Yeah.
They have no point of view about anything. I mean, you can be having a bad hair day and judging the heck out of yourself, and they really don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, and even with something like death, which we really make very significant in this reality, I remember being so distressed and so sad and so unsure of what choice to make because she was getting really sick and she appeared to be really uncomfortable. She was throwing up. She couldn't stand up. She was so weak. She had stopped eating, and yet in her eyes, I could see something different. Like, she was just present. She was just there. She was like, what? That look animals give you, like, yeah, what? Yeah, I know. I just fell over throwing up, but I'm okay now. So, like, what? And, and I would ask her, like, what do you want? Like, are you, like, do you want me to take you to the vet? Like, do you need help going? Like, do you want to stay home and die here? Like, what? And she was like, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah. Whatever you like. And 2 years ago, she actually was attacked by a dog, and I was at a class at the moment. And when my husband texted me to say he was taking her to the veterinary hospital because she had been bitten, and was seemed really critical, I remember saying to her, "Oh my God, MJ, not now." Not like this. Please, not I know it's your choice, and I know I need to let go, and I know it's your choice, but please not like this. And you know what? And she hung around for 2 more years. So I kind of feel like they're like, whatever, I'll stay if you want, or not.
That's really cool.
And so I started to look at what if we could function like that? What if we could function from really no point of view about death? And what are the lies that are in the way?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you know about lies? Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
Well, that is one of the things that comes up when I am doing readings with people a lot, is they come through thanking the person for giving them permission to let go, giving them permission that it's okay to die. And it brings me to tears every time because it's such a gift when we're willing to let them go. And sometimes beings, like even animals, because they're aware of how much we want them here, we require them here. But what a gift it is if we're willing to let them go and willing to, give them permission. And because I always say it's our own selfishness that we want people here, right? And so one of the reasons that I wrote my book, You Are Not Alone, is for that reason. I was seeing too many people caught up in the lies of death, caught up in the grief, caught up in the missing their loved ones, all of the guilt and all of the other stuff, all of those other lies that come in. And I was so, I guess, tired of seeing that I thought, I have to write this book. I have to share what I know from communicating with loved ones on the other side so that they know that they're not alone and that, we simply change form. That's it. We're infinite beings. And we have to, one of the other things that one of the lies I think is that we have to fight to live. And it's like, what if it's okay to want to die?
Yeah.
What if it's okay to want to let go? What if our time here is complete and we have more to do on the other side as being the infinite being?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, what if it's okay to let go? What if it's okay to die? I think that's one of the first lies right off the bat, is that we learn that early as children, is that death is wrong. Death is bad. Death is sad. It's a bad thing when someone dies. And, I can tell you from being a pediatric nurse and seeing many children die, I know that many times death can be a gift. And I see the gift, like, not only that it can be a gift because the person is physically suffering or something like that, but I can see the gift that whole process is to everyone in the family. And that might sound harsh to some, but I don't know, like I feel like I see where often death can really change things for people.
Do you see also when you're working with people, you've probably been around death more than most of us that are listening, do you see that it can be a gift to be out of a point of view that they should live or die?
Right.
Or do you see that they're suffering because they are holding on, or because the loved ones that are with them don't want them to go? Do you see the difference between suffering and then also being the gift of giving them permission to go? Have you actually seen that?
Yes, I have, because I feel like I have seen differences in how parents and families respond to death, and then how that plays out. So, I've watched families really struggle to let go, we'll call it, of children who are, and then children who are terminally ill or who, and are just, on the ventilator and brain dead or whatever, or not necessarily brain dead, but like just very physically sick. And they are, really struggling to make that decision to take them off the vent, like the child just keeps, and then sometimes when you do that, the child keeps living, keeps breathing, for a long time. Yeah, it's hard to describe, but I have seen how children will just deteriorate physically for a long, lengthy period of time. And then I've watched other families where, like, it's been just so inspiring. There was one child who was, they were like native, they were Aboriginal, and he received a liver transplant when he was, I think, about 7. And then when he was about 14 or 15, that liver failed and he needed to be relisted for transplant. And he actually asked not to be relisted. He asked not to have that transplant. And I remember the medical team was like, but this is life-saving. Like, you are going to die without this liver transplant. Your liver is completely ruined. And he was okay with that. And he was like, I don't want to do that again. And his parents honored his choice without a lot of drama. They were just like, this is his choice and we are going to honor it. And they took him home and they brought in a whole bunch of like their Aboriginal spiritual leaders to the room. And I remember just having absolute goosebumps watching it, because it was joyful. It was a celebration of life. Like it was gratitude for him being here. And then they took him home and he died on the reserve, like in nature, surrounded by his family. And so,
Wow.
I have seen the difference between, and how it's so easy for them to go and how quickly they go, as opposed
to me, that was such a beautiful thing. Like, I can perceive the energy of it, and what a gift that is. And Keisha says the honoring, absolutely.
Yes.
Like, and that's what I see sometimes when I'm doing a reading and they're telling me, please thank them for giving me permission to go. It's like, it's just relief. It's like finally they have choice. That it's not, well, I should do this or I shouldn't do that, or, I should hang in there and suffer some more. It's like, from what I've seen, it's like it's the resistance to death that creates the greatest pain, and that's the biggest thing that I think people are so afraid of with death is the suffering, the pain, the transition. And it's like, what if we could have these conversations more? So I'm so grateful that you are doing this show today, because what a gift it will be to undo the lies, for people to realize that actually even in death, it's just a choice.
Mm-hmm. And that's such a good point. Like, I wonder how much of the distress with dying, like the person who is dying, stems from the early belief that death is wrong, or that death is painful for the family, right? So we learned this as small children. And so I wonder how much easier it would be for people to die if we never thought death was wrong. How much less suffering would be involved, physical suffering, right? How much hanging on would be involved if there was no wrongness in death. If there was no
and
wrongness,
how much less trauma and drama.
Right, for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I think the big lie there is that death is a separation, right? So death is wrong is one, and then death as a separation is huge. It's probably the first lie, because it's a separation, then we make it wrong, right? Because we don't want to be separated. So, we really do believe that death is a separation, and because we can't touch people. I remember when my grandfather died, he was the first person that died, like in my immediate family. It was really my first experience with death. And I remember being at the funeral home where he was laying for like 3 days. And on the last day, like the day of his funeral, I remember being so upset because I wasn't going to be able to touch his body. And I remember having this internal conversation of like, that's really stupid, because I know he's not here. Like, I know this is not him. Like, I know this is just his body, and I know this is dumb. But I felt like I could just sit there. I would have loved it if he could just stay there forever and I could just go and visit his body. Even though I knew he wasn't there, this thing, like, we make the body so real. That's the thing we make most real. Right?
Yes.
And
yeah,
is it?
Absolutely.
Is it? And how can you talk about that? Like, what is it that's real beyond just the body?
Well, that's a really great question. And it's like, what about the energy of who we truly be? And it's funny, because even as you say this, sometimes, people say to me, oh, I miss you. And it's like, sometimes I don't really get that, because I feel like, and maybe it's just because of what I do and I'm connected to the energy and the being of everyone, that sometimes I don't really get the missing thing. It's like, but we're all connected. Like, I think about you, you think about me. It's like, but we're not willing to be that aware. And I think that's even where a lot of the lies around death comes in, is we're not willing to be that aware to even know when our time would be up or someone else's time would be up. Like, what if we were willing to really be aware of that and be okay with it?
Yes. With my dog, MJ, she started talking to me about her death probably about 2 years ago. Like 2 years before she died. Because I suddenly started, and I didn't know that that's what was happening at the time, or maybe I didn't. I just didn't want to look at it. But yeah, I like how I catch myself on my radio show, and I like how I catch myself lying on my radio show. It's really funny. That just happened. So
funny.
I used to be around her, and so she was like 12 when she died, right? Which is old for a dog. But I started to be around her, and I started thinking, oh, she's going to die soon. Like, she's getting up there in age, Or this was how I would rationalize it. And then I would be like, oh, why am I thinking that? Like, stop it. Why are you thinking about her death? And it would happen over and over and over again. Oh, her body's slowing down. She's probably gonna die soon. And I kept making myself wrong and being like, ew, why am I doing that? Like, stop it. And now I know. And I wonder what could have been different if I had really paid attention to that. And so you're right. How much do we shut off our awareness about when people are going to be going or not, because we don't want to look at it because we think it's so uncomfortable, when really it's what a gift it is for someone to offer that energy to us. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the way I see it is, we all have a life cycle, right? So it's like, who's to say that, like even the boy that you spoke of with the liver transplant, like he decided that that was his life cycle. That was his choice. And thankfully his family honored that, and the medical staff honored that. You know, of course you're going to present to him all of the options and whatever, but he still chose what he chose. And that is so amazing to me. It's like, what if we could be that willing to be A, that aware, B, give people that choice and get ourselves out of the way of our own selfishness, right? Because they want us, you know, we want them to be around. We don't want to be here without them. But it's like, what if we could honor that they simply transition, they change form, and that they still are with us. They are still around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that we can still communicate with them. We can still continue with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I do when I do readings with people is like, I don't want people relying on me as the medium to communicate with their loved ones. Honestly, it's like, I tell people, you can communicate with them yourself. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to know that that's even possible?
Mm-hmm. And I love that so much, because I think I've always kind of known that about people who we call psychics. It's like, I think I've always known that actually we really do all have this capacity, you know. Some of us are not really willing to look at it or strengthen it, or
absolutely.
And what a gift that is to people who come to you to be like, hey, you can do this. You don't need to come to me. You can talk to them like I talk to them. It's great.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Big time. And I often give people a sign. I like to give them, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes I will get a sign from the loved one, and so that it's a reminder to them when they see that sign, whatever it may be it a rainbow or a bluebird, because those signs will show up in the most amazing times, whether you're worried or stressed about something or you're having a hard time, those signs will show up. And it's just that reminder again that, you know, they are still with us, that you aren't alone. And, you know, a lot of times they are still guiding us. I see grandparents and loved ones come in all the time, you know, especially for parents who worry about their kids. It's like they're telling them that they're protected, they're okay. It's like even with our children, we forget that they're infinite beings, that, you know, really the worst thing that can happen to us in this world is that we die. But we're infinite beings, we don't really die. We just carry on in another form, right? It's like you said with your grandfather, we just leave the physical body behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's take a break. Let's take a break, and we're going to come back. And you touched on something that I really, really want to talk about, and that's missing people. I really, really want to talk about that more. So you are listening to Messy Adventures in Living on the Inspired Choices Network. I'm here today. We're talking about The Lies of Death with Jeneen Yungwirth. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you wait until all the traffic lights are green before you get in your car? Of course you don't. Are you waiting until you have everything perfect to begin living? Most of us have learned not to take any steps until we have all the information to make the right choice. What if the opposite is true? What if it's choice that creates awareness? Are you willing to make lots of messy choices so you can begin to see the possibilities that you didn't think existed? Listen for Messy Adventures in Living radio show with self-declared messy living expert Petrina Fava every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific on the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. How much more expansive would your life be if you were willing to get messy with your choices?
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that when run assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bars session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. the best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator, to schedule a private session, or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
You're listening to Messy Adventures in Living with Petrina Fava. To participate in today's show, please call in the U.S. 815-880-8255. In Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also ask questions or comment by email by sending to Petrina at petrinafava.com. Now, here's Petrina with more Messy Adventures.
Yes, welcome back to Messy Adventures in Living. I'm your host, Petrina Fava. I am joined today by Jeneen Yungwirth, and we're talking about the lies of death. And we're having a really fun show talking about death, aren't we, Jeneen? I just wanted to address something. I wanted to go and talk about missing people, but there's something in the chat room I just want to address. Sue in the chat room just made a comment about people with cancer or, I guess really any long-term debilitating illness. Where is it? I'm just trying to find it here. And about not getting a choice. So she feels that sometimes they don't get choices. They're told that they have to have chemo, radiation to survive longer. What if quality is better than quantity? Sometimes they feel they have to do it, not just to disappoint family, and it isn't always their choice. And right, it's what we were talking about before, right? Like we have this, there's this huge point of view that you want to not cause suffering to your family. So, you might not talk about the fact that you really would rather just die. But I wanted to ask you, Jeneen, because it made me think about making decisions for people who are not conscious and making decisions about whether they live or die or life support or no life support or treatment or no treatment. Is there anything you can tell us or offer, like a tool you can offer us about how someone would go about communicating with someone who is in their body but not conscious?
That's a really great question.
Maybe, yes. Probably not a 5-minute answer, but I mean.
I'm just, I'm not sure what I'm going to tell you, so let me just start speaking and see what comes out.
Okay.
Because I had this experience with my aunt about 5 years ago where she had, it's something similar to a stroke. It's an AVM. You probably know what that is. But it is a brain bleed, and, they had done like a 5-hour surgery on her, and they weren't sure, what her recovery was going to be like and whatnot. So for me as a medium, I can tap into the energy and communicate, I guess, just through what I do. And I had the awareness that she was on the fence when I kind of went in to speak with her, and she wasn't sure that she wanted to come back and recover because it was going to be, there was a lot of damage, and it was going to be a process of learning to walk, maybe even learning to talk, all of those things. And my aunt was not a person who liked to rely on others. Mm-hmm. So it was really interesting when I, first tuned in and saw that she was on the fence. And, I did a body process on her, to kind of try to help with some of the healing and just see what was going to transpire from it. But in the end, it was like one day I woke up and it was just a total knowing. And again, if we're all willing to be aware, for me it was a knowing that she was now choosing to go. And it was interesting because her son was in communication with me via email through this whole process, because it was a process, I think it was over a week or two, I can't really remember now, where every day he was kind of giving me daily updates. And it was interesting because even the updates he was giving me were things that I was kind of picking up on already from just being, I guess, tuned into her or connected with her. And so I woke up this day and I knew that she was going to go. And that was when the medical staff confirmed that there was no brain activity and, asking the family what it was that they wanted to do. Did they want to keep her on life support or, did they want to take her off? And, the family decided that it was, in her best interests because they knew her, that she wouldn't want to be kept alive by machines, that wasn't quality of life for her. And so they opted to, stop all of the machines and let her go. So, that's a really great question. Like, how well do you know your loved one? Are you willing to be that aware? Are you willing to, I guess, how do I explain how I do that?
Yeah. It's hard to explain the difference between awareness and thought sometimes,
Well, and I think seems a fine line.
Mhm. You know what I think is key actually is judgment. Because I feel like I was thinking about, what if someone tells you that if, they had a big stroke or they had a big kind of event like that they wouldn't want to be kept alive, and then they change their mind. Like, could you be aware enough to catch it? Or the other way around. Like, some people are really afraid of death, and they might say to you, I want you to do absolutely everything to keep me alive if that happens. Like, they tell you that in words. And then something shows up and they're like, they change their mind. They're like, whoa, I don't think I want to do this. Could you, like, imagine how hard that is, because they've told you before with words. It's like, I'm telling you, don't let me die. Like, I'm afraid of death. But then they change their minds. They're not conscious. They can't tell you. You got to have all that judgment out of the way, right? You got to have the guilt out of the way. You have to be willing to be so raw and so open and so vulnerable to have the awareness to know, right? So I think getting judgment out of the way is huge.
Absolutely. That's a really great point. And the other thing that's kind of coming in is knowing your communication. Like, I try to teach people, and it's something that we've learned through Access, is whatever is light is true for you, and whatever is heavy, right, is a lie or not true for you. And it's like, what if we could all just be so in tune with being willing to ask questions and get the answers via the light and heavy? And, I do that all the time when I'm doing my work. And sometimes it's funny because it happens instantly. Someone will come up to me and ask me a question, and I get an instant read. And if we could practice that and get more into our awareness of the light and heavy, that way, again, it's like you're willing to see the truth and you're willing to see beyond the lies. And I just think there's still too many people in the world that are really, truly afraid of the truth, which is so messed up and weird.
Yeah, so it's weird.
Then when I get that, I say, well, then it's like there's a lot of resistance to ease, right? Like, when we have trauma and drama and death, that is definitely not ease. It's a lot of pain, right. So it's like, I think people are still addicted to trauma and drama, and whatever that creates for them, rather than.
You keep going.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, especially around mourning people, because there's this point of view that if you really miss someone, it means that you love them. If you really cry, if you really grieve, if you never let go of the grief, like if you say things like my life is never going to be the same, I'll never stop grieving over you. Like, how much do we hold on to that because we think that if we don't do that, it means we didn't love them? Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, or it's a measure of how much you did love them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's funny because coming up to this 1 year mark, which, again, it's the significant thing that we do, but this 1 year mark of the anniversary of my dog's death, I've done this, I've caught myself doing this a lot, where I catch myself almost trying to make that this thing show up, like how do I explain it? Like trying to see if that sadness is still there, or trying to, like, and then when it's not, it's like, do you know what I'm saying? Like searching for it.
Yeah.
It's not in my universe anymore, because I have spent the last year learning how to communicate with her in a different way. Right? Asking her to show me fun memories, like asking her, and so when I coming up to this 1 year mark, which again, we make significant, I was like, oh, there's no energy on it, really. There was really no energy on it. It's like, if anything, I was like, thank you for the reminder. Like, thanks for the reminder, and thanks for the opportunity to do another show and talk about it, you know? But the energy of, like, sadness and missing, like, I'm like, oh, it's not really there anymore. And I'm okay with that, you know, and it doesn't mean I loved her less. It's
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the lies that people buy, is that's one of the lies, right? It's like, if you don't grieve, if you aren't the, you know, the grieving person, then that somehow means that they're, I don't know, it's weird, it's twisted. I get that energy when I'm working with people in readings too. It's like, you know, I'll ask them if they want to release the grief or the emotion or whatever, and they just, their eyes get big, and it's like somehow they think if they really let that go, then they've really lost them. And it's like, but they're already gone. Yes. It's kind of silly, you know, how we, I guess, twist those lies up in our heads to make it seem more significant or more real or keep them closer or whatever. But really all it does is just create more suffering.
Right. For both of you, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I have seen instances where the loved one on the other side, it's like if the person does choose to let go, it's like it is a gift to them on the other side too, because they're like, okay, finally, you know, they're setting me free too. Like, so energetically, it's almost like they're being pulled to stay close, and it's almost like they're not totally free either.
Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about what that means? Like, what does that mean exactly? So keeping them close versus setting them free. Like, you know, if they're an infinite being and if we're infinite beings, can we not be in touch all the time? And what does it mean for you when you say setting them free or keeping them here, keeping them pulled close? What does that mean exactly?
It's almost like an energy of being afraid to let go of the energy of their passing, right? Everything that goes with it. All of the emotion, all of that. And so energetically, it's almost like there's still it's almost like a magnet where it's like they're trying to pull them and keep them close. And it's another lie that we buy that really isn't a contribution, right? It's actually a limitation.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. Someone that my husband used to work with, her son was hit by a train. Like, he was in a vehicle and something happened. He was on the train track or maybe crossing or whatever, and was hit by a train and killed. This woman has taken on the role of the grieving mother ever since. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and it's like, to me, it's like you forget, right? Like you've moved on, and you kind of assume or think that others have moved on. And I remember one time saying to her, Mother's Day was coming up, and I said to her, oh, do you have any plans for Mother's Day? Well, oh my goodness, wrong person to ask that question, because she was like, I do not celebrate Mother's Day, and I am forever grieving, and my son, and I just, honestly, it was like, so how many lies has she bought there?
Yeah.
And even the energy of, I will be the forever grieving mother, to show how much she loved her son.
That's
she
right.
Still has a son here that's alive. So how much is that even taking away from her relationship with her living son?
Yeah.
And so you can see how all of the lies that she's bought is actually taken away the joy in her entire life, including all of her loved ones all around her, including me simply asking her, what are your plans for Mother's Day? It was like,
poor Jeneen.
Oh my gosh. It was like, whoa, loaded question. Whoa, I didn't check my awareness when I asked that one. You know, but it's like, honestly, like, how much is she, and you know, how much her son wants her to know that he is fine, that he's an infinite being, he's on the other side, but she is totally unwilling to receive or hear that because she's too busy being the grieving mother. It's kind of, again, not a judgment, because if I say that's kind of sad, how much judgment is in there, but you can see the energy of what's being created there. You know, obviously, I'm an allowance of what she's choosing, because it's just a choice. She's choosing that, you know, but it's just, you just think, wow, there's so many other possibilities, and really this is what you're choosing. Again, because we're not aware. We're not taught a lot in life about what death is.
Right.
I feel like we're taught to fight to live.
Yeah.
You know, and again, another lie. It's like, what if we all just have a life cycle? It's just a life cycle that, you know, there's no right or wrong to it. You know, it's like when someone young dies, how much judgment and how many people say, oh, it's such a tragedy. You know, they had so much life to live. Maybe they didn't come here to, you know, grow old and become a grandmother or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it's so interesting. I actually was helping a young fellow. His girlfriend was killed in a car accident just in January. And you know, he came to me, he knew what I did. He's a friend of my daughter's, and so he asked if he could have a reading with me, and it was so beautiful, so amazing what the passing of this young lady, she was 16, what she has shown so many people already just through her passing.
Yeah.
And she actually knew that she was going to pass. So she had an awareness that her time was going to be short here on earth, because she had a conversation, I think it was almost a month to the day before she died, with her sister. Her and her sister weren't overly close, but they happened to have this heart-to-heart, and she told her older sister that, you know, I don't feel I'm going to live a long time, and I feel like I've lived a good life, and I'm not afraid to die. And she was having this conversation with her sister. And her sister was just like, wow. And that was a gift to her. I also ended up doing a reading for her sister through the way all the reading went, and the things that came up and the messages that went through the boyfriend back to this sister. But she said it was such a gift having that conversation with her sister. It helped her have more ease with her losing her sister. And then the day of her passing, so the boyfriend, when he came to me, said, do you think she knew that she was going to die? And it was so light to me. And I said, well, yes, in some ways. And it's not always a cognitive, like, oh, today I'm going to die. Sometimes it's more of a knowing inside that, you know, you're not here for a long time. And the day she passed was actually a day like it is today, blistery and you know, snowy, and the roads were icy. And it was lunchtime, and she said to him, you know, if I was to get in an accident, she said, I really hope I go quickly. I don't want to be cold. Well, in the reading, what she said to me was, so she shows herself, because sometimes I'll get images, and she's twirling in the sunlight, and she says it's the perfect temperature. And I'm like, this is such a weird message for me to pass on. And
oh my God.
I didn't know what she meant, but I'm like, she's saying this. He smiled, and he said, I know exactly what she means. And she was telling him that she didn't suffer, that she went quickly. And, you know, it's been an amazing thing, you know, being in communication with him, helping him, you know, to acknowledge the emotions as they come up rather than stuff them down. Because I said to him, you know, you might get triggered. You might be filling up your car with gas, and maybe you hear a song and it reminds you of her, and the sadness comes up, but there's people around you and you want to just shove it down. I was teaching him how to just release the emotion as it comes up so that it doesn't get shoved down, even when it's coming up at, say, the wrong time, or, you know, a time that doesn't seem convenient, because that's often what happens with emotion with us, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she's touched so many lives in her. I mean, this January is only a few months ago, and it's just been, to me, it's been a magical, beautiful story of her passing, and being able to even communicate with her friends and show them that the relationship continues on. If you're willing to see her signs, if you're willing, you know, I've told them all, you can talk to her. Like, if you're willing, it's in your head, right? It's like you can ask a question, you might hear words back. It's like telecommunication. It's very instant. If you're willing to do that, you can have that. And I'm sure you were doing that with MJ, right? Is that not how you were communicating while MJ was sick? It's not how we think it is. It's almost like it's thought kind of going back and forth, where you ask a question and then you have the information back. And it's like you said, it's that fine line of, is this awareness, or am I making this up in my head? Am I thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think what would happen if we really just trusted that and went with it? Because so often it is correct, really. Yeah. I wanted to I can't believe we're almost done. But we're going to skip the break because I really wanted to talk about missing someone. And there's a quote from Dr. Dane here, who is the co-founder of Access, that I read many years ago and just had shivers in my whole body when I read it. And it goes like this: what if the intensity of feeling that you have identified as missing someone instead is the intensity of connection that is really there? And ever since I read that, I had a very different point of view about missing someone. And what a gift this has been, because now every time I feel like I miss someone, I actually go, oh, are you here? And I've had that happen almost all the time, specifically with my dog MJ. And but the question that I want to ask is, and you touched on it just now, is that the trauma of the passing and how this links to missing. So like when she initially died, the first few days, the first few weeks, I kept remembering the trauma, right? Like I kept seeing these images of her throwing up and falling over and like how skinny she got and all of this. And the way I changed it actually was that I asked her to show me happy memories. And she did that. And that really changed, and I'm so grateful. She's so awesome. But
wow.
Can you talk a little bit about that sense of missing and that sense of, maybe they're separate. I don't know if they're separate or together, but like the holding on to that magnetic imprinting of the trauma and how we can change that.
Wow, I actually have never heard that quote before, and I love that.
Isn't it? I love it so much.
It's beautiful. It's like, how much we are buying lies of what we think is true, and it's like, to me, that's the truth, right? It's more the intensity of the connection. And it's so beautiful. Keisha's asking you to say the quote again.
Yeah. I can say it again. Yes. It's, what if...
Oh, and you put it here.
I put it in the chat room. What if the intensity of feeling that you have identified as missing someone instead is the intensity of the connection that is really there? So we have this feeling that we call missing someone, or we've learned to call it that, right? We're taught that means you miss someone. But what if it's not that at all? What if it's actually the intensity of connection? So for me, when I first read it, and I'm like, every time I miss someone, I wonder if they're around me. And I'm calling it missing them, but it's actually that I'm sensing them there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And it's like, how many times have we all thought of someone, right? It's like, oh, I haven't seen so-and-so for a long time. And either you run into them on the street or they call you.
Right.
So it's like those thoughts go out, and then, so we're always broadcasting and receiving information, right? And so it's like how much we actually are connected that we're just not acknowledging.
Right. Because we're calling it missing them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's how I guess I've never acknowledged that I've known this, because you think, well, I'm just me and this is just how I am. But it's like acknowledging that. I guess that's why I don't really miss people, because I know that we're connected all the time. It's like, how much are we willing to actually acknowledge that we have that capacity and turn it up?
Yeah, that's right. There's a comment in the chat room about that Sue mentioned about losing her nephew, and that she says, I'm one day closer to being with him. Thank you for that, Sue, because that's also another lie I think we buy, is that we put it in the future. We're like, oh, one day I'll see you again. Like, when I die, then we'll be together. And, like, what if that's not true? What if you're still together? What if you never separated?
Absolutely. And that is what I try to tell people when I do readings is they are still here. They've just changed form. Are you willing to? Their energy is obviously more subtle than being in a body, right? I always say it's like when we transition from the body to being back to being an infinite being, I always use the analogy of water. So ice would be the solid body, right? Ice is dense and you can touch it and sense it.
Right.
When we transition back to being an infinite being, it's more like the humidity in the air. So, and then there's also the transition of sometimes people don't fully transition, so they're out of their body, but they haven't fully transitioned. And so to me, that's like steam, and that's where it would be like someone who's a ghost who doesn't realize they don't have a body and they have somewhere else to be. So it's kind of like it's those different levels of transition, but it's like humidity in the air can still be felt. You can't see it, but you can still feel it.
Yeah, and it's still the same. It's just a different form.
Exactly. And it's just the level of awareness. So are people willing to up their awareness and sense their loved ones still with them and be willing to set up even signs? Because, you know what, even for me, sometimes I get little reminders of people that I was close to that have passed. And it's like I have little signs with them, and that their signs will show up. I'll be like, oh, you know, my Auntie Marilyn's here with me, or, you know, or my grandma's here, or whatever. It's like a reminder. Even we do forget because we get caught up in the busyness of life.
Yeah.
But it's like those little signs are like, oh my gosh, that's right, I'm not alone. And, you know, if there's either a happy time going on, or I'm struggling with something, or I'm stressed about something, it's their little reminder to say, hey, everything's okay. Or, hey, we're still here, even though you're celebrating, like, we're happy with you.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're in the last 4 minutes. I'm not sure how that happened. But do you want to talk a little bit about you and how people can reach you, and maybe your book and the services you offer and all of that kind of awesome stuff?
Sure, absolutely. I do want to talk a little bit about my book and just say, like, you know, I never used to believe this was possible. I didn't believe it was possible to communicate with loved ones after they were gone. And it was like what you said earlier. It's like when I was 13, I could feel a presence in a certain house that I babysat in, and you chalk it up to, well, it's like the boogeyman, or maybe I just want them to be here, or whatever. And, you know what, sometimes when we think of them, it's not, I guess the go-to is, oh, I'm just thinking of them. If you really pay attention, you weren't thinking at all. You were busy doing something when they popped in. So sometimes it's them reaching out to us, but the only way it works is through thought, right? So it's like they'll pop into our heads and we'll think, oh, I'm just thinking of them again. I must be missing them. No, say hello. Like if you're paying attention, you'll notice that sometimes they pop in when you weren't thinking at all. You were in the midst of being busy. So just be aware of that your loved ones can pop in too. It's not just you reaching out to them. They are trying to reach out to you. But truly, like, I didn't believe it was possible, and I now know it's possible, obviously, because I embraced being a medium. I was told that I had the capacity, and I went, oh, is that why I always felt like I was being watched? It wasn't like the boogeyman, you know, because you just chalk it up to, oh, it's like the boogeyman, doesn't exist, you know? And yet in this one specific house, it was always happening. And then I overheard a conversation between the owner and my mom, and her telling my mom all the weird things that happened in that house. And it was mostly from the kitchen, where they'd come home from work and cupboard doors and drawers would be open, etc. And it was like, oh, okay, there's something to this. That was my kind of first, like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy, because I felt like I was being watched from the kitchen. Yeah, that was where I felt like I was being. So, yeah. So anyway, so if you want to know more about me, I do have a website, Jeneen.ca. I do have a Facebook page. It's called Just Show Up with Jeneen. Like Petrina said, I do have archives as well. I used to be on Inspired Choices Network, and all of my archives are there. And I do talk more about death and what it means and what your dead loved ones want you to know. So there's all of that as well. So those are just ways that you can find me. I'm so grateful that you had me on today. It was such a fun topic.
Yes, it was such a fun topic, wasn't it? I'm so grateful that you have been here. I've been wanting to have you on my show for a while, and finally it jumped. I was like, that's the one.
And what a gift. It was your puppy that brought us together.
I know, right? She's the gift that keeps on giving. I'm telling you, she's awesome. I love her. So what else was possible with all this? And also, I just want to pop in, like, what could we show our children about death that would change the way we all look at death from now on, like in the future? I guess I'll leave you guys with that. So thank you so much for being here, everyone in the chat room, listening, playing with us live, and for all of you who have listened in the future, goodbye. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for playing with us on Messy Adventures in Living. Petrina Fava will return next Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, and 8 a.m. Pacific on Inspired Choices Network. We'd love to have you join us again. Until next time, have fun creating your phenomenal life, mess and all.